My state of being is not likely the same as yours. And I don't say it as a boast because it's not a function of any accumulated merit or noble tasks performed. I don't come from any lineage or tradition that aims to acquire this state of being. I'm just a worldly person upon whom something profound, palpable, ongoing, and seemingly otherworldly has been bestowed. I know that in Eastern traditions, to perpetually perceive reality in this way is something that comes upon a subject through a master who is of some spiritual lineage, the secrets of which are closely guarded. But I don't have such a master who swears me to secrecy. I speak from direct experience that persists even as I communicate this. It appeared apart from a master of flesh and blood, but I've had to navigate the transition through searching out the accounts of those with corroborating experiences. So I will speak freely and frankly about it, at the risk of sounding like a fool. Though it should come with a warning, because I can clearly see how it could bring peril to someone whose nervous system could not accommodate it, and also could create a dangerous kind of grandiosity in a person who only partially unfolds towards this unraveling of duality's perception, which is what I call delusion. Beyond the trap of unfruitful and life-destroying non-dual practice lamented by so many troubled individuals in YouTube videos, there is a real danger in actually getting the palpable results that are sought in such. I'm saying that you can make yourself crazy if the vessel is not up to the task, and if there are unrealistic expectations or strange belief systems into which these perceptions get shoehorned. There needs to be a certain robustness of constitution, a nervous system that can accommodate the energy and a grounding in reality in the face of what seems a perpetual supernatural state of being, a bliss that appears, but not before a stabilization of such that prior to feels like an electrical storm that burns in the face of resistance to the reality of the world's chaos and one's own inability to be perfect in every way, which is simply not possible for a human being. So, in these Eastern traditions, oftentimes there's a physical aspect of it that precedes the subtle, like yoga, you know. So there's like a preparation of the body for what comes in the destruction of the mind. So this resistance of the mind, it has bearing on the state of the energy body when, through a falling away of identification with content, can become unbalanced and concentrated in different areas of the form. This vessel, this body, my body, has been physically trained intensely since early adolescence, though not to any spiritual end, just by happenstance. And it's yielded a nervous system that I suspect is like that of a hatha yoga practitioner. Like my fitness routine encompasses strength training of the moving kind as well as the isometric kind, and endurance, cardiovascular activity while under loads, plus flexibility. I never miss workouts, and I've been working out for almost 40 years. I'm convinced that were this not the case, this body would not have been able to endure the ravages of the energy that eventually stabilized in the spiritual heart and is now perceived as love. But it's likely that the need to endure this was a function of my initial resistance and unconsciousness. So it's possible that a person who is a saintly figure or who has been under the guidance of such for a long time might not have to endure the initial ravages of energetic awakening. And to be clear, I don't hear voices. I operate in this world as one who does not suffer crippling delusions. I don't consider myself any kind of spiritual figure who was prophesied in any way. And that's to say, I'm just a functional, normal person, one who maintains all the trappings of a worldly life. I hold a professional job, occupying what you would call a position of trust. And while I do live alone, I've gone through a family life, and I continue to support the generations above and below me. So for the past 10 years, I've been in, as best I can discern from the literature on such topics, a state of walking samadhi. It's like there's a palpable love, a bliss, if you will, radiating from the midst of me, quite similar to what is described regarding Ramana Maharshi and others through spiritual history, the effect of which is that I can hardly be bothered to chase anything. It's not a deadness, though, but rather a default state of being that eclipses the product of anything one could pursue. And yet there is still an enjoyment and an appreciation of those things that people pursue for pleasure when they come to me on their own accord, or when life's path brings them my way. I can still enjoy them. I just don't have to aggressively pursue them. So I don't suffer anhedonia, but rather a state of bliss. And in a way, it's dangerous because it yields a feeling of unconditional love for everyone, even the worst of people, people who would harm me given the chance. I feel an indescribable sense of love and connection to them, but it's not based on any conceptual framework or overlap in worldview, or just commitment to loving other people by willpower despite the way I feel. It's not that way. The way I feel is love that's not based on concepts, and thus I have to guard how I direct my attention and who I allow into my proximity. I also do not judge people, but rather have a sense of shared responsibility for their doings. Again, not as the function of some principle, but it is rather as if by virtue of there being no sense of their otherness, that I am a co-perpetrator of the harmful deeds that they carry out in their unconsciousness. They don't know what they do. So there's an inability to hate others. And indeed, it's written, even in the Bible, that the one who hates has not the spirit of truth in them. This state is a function of the surrender to the truth, but it's only arrived at provided that the resistance leading up to that surrender does not destroy the body and mind in the process. It's a certain kind of brokenness, like the breaking of a glow stick that causes this shining, as I've said before. The bliss is so great that I can hardly be bothered to speak on the topic without the prompting of someone to ask me about it. This channel will never have any real polish to it. You will never hear me crafting some clever segue into a pitch on behalf of the sponsor of today's video. If this channel picks up a large number of subscribers, it'll just be by the luck of the algorithm. And I do say luck because these algorithms use probabilities. I would warn against listening to anyone who speaks on spiritual matters whose channel is clearly being used as an avenue for monetization. There's a certain flavor of ambition that you can taste from the producers of most YouTube channels, not just spiritual ones. And I'm not being critical of monetization in general, because like if you have a channel that gives practical advice and information on worldly matters, like mechanical things, fitness, whatever, those are, to the extent that they take somebody's time and resource, they require some compensation to make them happen. But somebody who has a really slick channel about spirituality and it's monetized and it has sponsors and they want to be big time and do TED Talks and shit like that, they're not speaking to you from the state to which they point. And as such, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know from experience. They're like the parrot that says what it knows but doesn't know what it says. They're just talking about what they read in a book or heard from someone else. Maybe they sat with a teacher even. They're trying to make money and aggrandize themselves in some way, though. It's very common. There are spiritual teachers who have victimized their followers, both sexually and financially, and they're not true. They don't speak from their truth. They're just speaking from what's written or what was told. I think about everything I have to say on this topic has already been said on this channel somewhere. It's contained somewhere in the body of work herein. So it's possible that I could cease to make videos and just leave this thing here as an artifact to be serendipitously discovered by viewers. I have so few subscribers, and yet I still see that every time I make a video that can be construed as attacking somebody's worldview or sacred identity or tradition, I lose subscribers. But that really is the point of this channel, to destroy you, to destroy the identification with exogenous and superficial things that appear in the awareness you are. Like your tradition, on behalf of which you could be offended, is bullshit. Bullshit that some asshole made up thousands of years ago. It is. It's a scheme, a grift to dominate others. And there have been thousands and thousands of these grifts that have appeared through history, randomly generated seemingly. And it's just that the ones that survive to this day they've done so by virtue of surviving a selection process. Like thousands of years ago, somebody came up with a grift that just happens to work in perpetuity. But it's a cage for your soul. It's a cage for your energy body, which you can't perceive from behind the veil of unconscious identification with body and mind and tradition. You have to be able to break that without destroying yourself in the process. And when I say yourself, I'm just using the convenience afforded by the concept of duality. To put it frankly, you have to realize that there is no you without destroying your nervous system or turning yourself into a crazy person. And that is like walking a razor's edge. That's all for now.